Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm here to bring you a recommendation video of atmospheric winter books. These are a combination of mysteries, thrillers, and just books that have that really creepy atmosphere and are perfect to read during the cold winter months. I have done a couple videos specifically on Christmas horror recommendations, and so this is kind of adjacent to that. They're books that I didn't necessarily include in those videos and ones that I just don't always get the chance to talk about. So if that sounds good, let's get started. I do want to mention if my voice sounds a little bit off though, it's because I'm sick with a cold, but I thought this was a really good video to film on a day like this because if you're also sick with a cold, these are great books to pick up on the couch, snuggle up next to the fireplace, or cuddle up under some blankets in your bed. So all that being said, let's get started. Now first, I cannot make a video like this without talking about one of my favorites, and so yes, I want to recommend I Am Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid. This follows a boyfriend and girlfriend that are traveling through the cold, wintry snow, and they are driving in a car together off to see the boyfriend's parents for the first time. However, we are told the story from the girlfriend's perspective, and she is possibly thinking about ending things in their relationship. And I think a lot of you have already read this book if you're following my channel. And I know some people have seen the movie, which I don't personally recommend, but if you have not been spoiled for this book, if you have not seen the movie, I highly recommend this one. I loved it for so many reasons. It's definitely very creepy and eerie, and you know that something is not quite right, but you don't know what that is. The writing is fantastic, all of that. But if you're looking for a creepy winter read, this one had amazing atmosphere. The author himself is Canadian like me, and so I really thought that this book captured the experience of having a winter country roadside trip and just what it is like to drive in the dark on these icy roads when you can't see anything and it's just all dark and snow in the distance, and I thought the author captured that perfectly. So if you're going on a wintry road trip, this would be an excellent one to pick up. Next, let's talk about another favorite, and that is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig. And this is set on a First Nation Canadian Indigenous reserve, and it's also set in Canada. I promise there's books set in other countries, but this particularly takes place during an apocalyptic event, but it is a very close, intimate story. So for the most part, the entire story takes place in this small community. And so at the beginning of the story, it is cold and wintry, and the power goes out, their cell phones stop working, but at first this seems possibly normal because there are a lot of issues that happen like that in these more northern communities that don't get the best access to utilities. However, as time goes on, they start to wonder if there's something that has happened in the outside world, and eventually they start to get a little bit more information. This story is so atmospheric. It's a story about a community coming together in, again, this wintry climate, having to survive, to control and just maintain their resources when they don't know if more supplies are coming. And it's just very eerie. I always have to say that you're not going to find out a lot about the apocalyptic event. It's so much more about the people in this community, and I love it. So if you just want a book that is unsettling because you don't know what's going on, you don't know quite what is happening, and again, it's set in the north, so you get that good Canadian feel to the story, and it's just so wonderfully woven in those elements, but it's quiet, it's just eerie, and I think you're really gonna love this one if you haven't already checked it out. Next, we have Snow Angels by James Thompson, and this one is set in Finland, so see, I promised we'd get out of Canada. And it is more of a mystery story. This is told from the perspective of an inspector, Kari, who is investigating this awful, brutal murder of this Somalian actress. And so he is pulled into the story trying to figure out who killed her and following that along. But because of where the story takes place, it is set not only in Finland, but specifically very close to the Arctic. It is set near Christmas, so it is incredibly dark. There is extreme cold, and you just get such an incredible sense of that dark, isolating cold. And so if you want a book that is just going to chill you to the bone, this is a great one to pick up. I have to mention, with pretty much all Scandinavian style mysteries, this one definitely has some more gruesome aspects to it. It's not the worst I've read, but it's definitely there. But I love the aspects of the setting. I thought they were really nicely just again woven into the story in a way that really makes you feel like you're going to be cold. I actually read this one in the middle of the summer, and it was so refreshing to read then because I was so hot, and this book actually cooled me down. And so I remember scenes where they're curling up by a fireplace and just talking about the intense cold and then going out on the ice and all of that. And it was so memorable. I read this book years ago and I'm still remembering those descriptions. And so I do recommend this one. I don't read a lot of mysteries anymore, but this one totally holds up and I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're looking for something in translation again, a wintry setting that is perhaps a little bit further from home, depending on where home is for you, of course. Next, I want to recommend another favorite, and that is The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. And this is a story set in Vermont over 2 different timelines. In the present day, there are 2 young girls, sisters, that are looking for their mother who has disappeared. And then the rest of the story takes place in the past, around the 1900s, where we follow a couple that after years of trying to get pregnant have finally conceived and have a child. However, there's a terrible accident right at the beginning of the story. And the story is all about the desperation of parents to protect their children and what they are willing to do for them. This book is often what I describe as horror light. It more reads like suspense, but in my opinion, it still has some pretty creepy moments. So I do not want to undersell it there. But if you are looking for that wintry experience, this book says it all in the title. It really is a winter read. You get them out in the snow, and that plays a large part of the story. And again, this is one of these books that has some incredible descriptions of what is happening, and part of that is the snow and the cold, and it just fits together so well. So I definitely recommend reading this book in the winter time because, like I said, the title definitely gives you an idea of what you're going to expect. So if you want that wintry cold feeling, you will absolutely get it from this book. I found it to be so chilling. Next up, I want to go off-brand a little bit and recommend Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This is a little bit more of a contemporary story, but if I stretch the definition and marketing, I could probably call this a thriller. And this is set in a place called Beartown, where everyone is obsessed with hockey. The town is somewhat going downhill and starting to die. However, they believe that hockey is what is going to save them, and so there is so much energy and emotions and hope placed on their local hockey team. And the story is told from multiple perspectives. We get to see several of the boys, their parents, and how everyone in the town is so affected by hockey. And the setup for the story is that something terrible happens, and then we get to see the consequences of how the city, or town rather, reacts to what was done. And I don't want to give away too much of the plot, although I do need to mention there certainly are some content warnings for those of you that need to watch out for those. You'll want to look them up, or I can tell you in the comments. But this is a story I completely fell in love with. And again, if you're new to my channel, you may not be aware, but I definitely lean towards the really creepy, scary books. And this is not horror. It's barely a thriller. Maybe it's a thriller. It's more of a contemporary. But I just loved it. And again, while this book is not set in Canada, I do feel like it has those similar roots because we are, of course, another hockey country. And so the passion and obsession around hockey really rung true for me. I am not necessarily a hockey nut myself, but it is so much part of my local community. The community I felt like could have been my hometown, and I related to it so much. The character work is amazing. And again, it's set during winter. It's all about hockey. And so for me, this is a book that I love to reread every Christmas or January. It's a book I love to come back to because it just gives me that perfect wintry feel and brings me back to my own childhood. It definitely, again, deals with some darker subject matter, but I thought it was very well handled, very nuanced, and I love this one. So like I said, slightly off-brand, but while it's not creepy like the rest of these books, it's definitely atmospheric and well worth your time. And finally, I want to recommend Snowblind by Ragnar Jónasson, and this is more of a mystery. This is written by an Icelandic author, of course, set in Iceland, and we follow a rookie policeman named Ari who just has gotten through the police force and is being assigned to work in this very cold, isolated community far from the capital and far from his girlfriend. And so in the story, the main mystery is this absolutely brutal attack of this young woman, and then there are other deaths that follow. and so they are investigating, is there a serial killer on the loose? Who is responsible? I will say that the mystery element itself was honestly a little bit straightforward and simple and was not my favorite part of this book, but if I'm going to do a recommendation video about atmospheric, cold, isolating reads, I have to talk about this book because it is so memorable. You have this young police officer who's a really interesting character because in most mysteries you get this really confident older character, and he is very young, he's very inexperienced, and he is lonely and depressed, and these are not normally things I see in these kind of books. And so I found him to be a very compelling character. He is very anxious and uncomfortable and just wants to go home. He wants to be with his girlfriend. And I actually read this book at a time where I was doing a lot of travel for work, and I was actually away from my husband for what was for me a longer length of time, and missing him and wanting to be home. And so I very much related to the character and felt his emotions. And again, due to the setting, Iceland, I think as a country, is so fascinating in terms of the environmental and climate setup, how you have these towns that are so isolated and they get those extreme cold temperatures, and it's woven into the story. You get the ice and the cold and just the road blockages and all the things that really do happen in these colder climates. So highly recommend this one. I just thought it was great. It's the beginning of a series. You can pick it up and it's just short and will give you that, again, that chilling mystery experience that you might be looking for. So that's it for this video here. I would love to hear down below of the books I talked about, which ones are you excited to check out? And of course, I want your recommendations for even more creepy, atmospheric winter reads, whether they be mysteries, thrillers, horror, or whatnot. Everything goes. I would love to perhaps do this video again in the future because it's definitely a theme that I really enjoy exploring. Again, it goes back to my Canadian roots. I just love books that really demonstrate how cold winter is in our climates, because I feel like people from Florida, no offense, but I don't think you really know what it feels like to experience our cold, long winters unless you've been here. And so I just love these books that really just create that experience and give readers the insight into what that could be like, or just again kind of recreate it, whether you're reading this on a really hot day trying to cool down or in the middle of winter curled up with a blanket. Otherwise, if you're new to my channel, I do read a lot of horror, thriller, science fiction, and fantasy. You can help me out by sharing this video around online, hitting that notification bell, and those thumbs up really do help with that mysterious YouTube algorithm. So if you stuck around, if you don't mind hitting that little thumbs up, it helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.